Good morning. Welcome to Common Sense with Tom Schmitz. I am your host, Tom Schmitz. We're coming to you from the Power Plant Business Incubator. I'll get this title right. Once I do the show enough times, I'll get it right. The Power Plant Business Incubator here in the city of Ocala. I must tell you that all the opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and the guest, and in no way reflect the opinions of the city of Ocala, the county of Marion, or the CEP Power Plant Business Incubator. On today's show, we will have City Councilman Matthew Wardell to talk about the state of the city. We'll get into a few topics, some of which include the golf course and the ongoing negotiations with Billy Casper Golf about the running of the golf course. We'll also talk about the downtown projects and where they are in their different stages. And we'll also talk about medical marijuana as it was passed by the citizens of the state of Florida in the past election. We'll see where the city is on discussions about medical marijuana. But first, let's talk about a day that will live in infamy. On this day, on early Sunday morning on this day in 1941, a Japanese dive bomber bearing the red symbol of the rising sun on its wings appeared out of the clouds above the island of Oahu. A swarm of 360 Japanese warplanes followed, descending on a U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in a ferocious assault. The surprise attack struck a critical blow against the U.S. Pacific Fleet and drew the United States irrevocably into World War II. Now, with diplomatic negotiations with Japan breaking down, President Franklin Roosevelt and his advisors knew that an attack was imminent, but nothing had been done to increase security at the naval base at Pearl Harbor. It was Sunday morning. Many military personnel had been given a pass to attend religious services off base. Two radar operators at 7:02 a.m. spotted large groups of aircraft in flight towards the island, but a flight of B-17s was expected on the island that day, so no alarm was given out. Thus, the Japanese air assault came as a devastating surprise to the naval base. Much of the Pacific Fleet was rendered useless. 5 of the 8 battleships, 3 destroyers, and 7 other ships were sunk or severely damaged, and more than 200 aircraft were destroyed. A total of 2,400 Americans lost their lives on that fateful day on December 7th of 1941. Another 1,200 were wounded, many while valiantly attempting to repulse the attack by the Japanese. The Japanese only lost 30 planes and 100 men. Fortunately for the United States, the 3 aircraft carriers that were a part of the Pacific Fleet were out on training maneuvers and were not there, and so they could seek their revenge 6 months later on the Japanese at the Battle of Midway. For more on this day in history, you can go to history.com and continue reading from the excerpt I was reading from. I want to bring to a point to people that just like 9/11 in 2001 for the generations under the age of 50, December 7th, 1941 for the baby boomer crowd is a day that will always be marked with sorrow, tragedy, and shock that the United States was attacked without cause and without warning by Japan. I want to remind everyone that we must always remember these events in history, because if we do not remember these events in history, we then let our guard down and sometimes can be caught off guard, as we were on September 11th, 2001. With that being said, now I'll bring in our guest, City Councilman Matthew Wardell. Councilman Wardell, good morning to you.
Good morning, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Fateful day, December 7th.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was doing some reading last week about it, and the one thing that you can say that came out of it is we learned to always be ready, and we built our military up from it. And of all those ships that were sunk, only one stayed sunk. The rest of them we rose up, we put back into production, and they were actually out fighting for us like a year or two later.
And of course, the one that was kept, that was not rose up, was USS Arizona, which is now the memorial on the Hawaiian island at Pearl Harbor. Let's jump right into some city business. Okay. I want to start with the one everybody's thinking about, because it was just passed in a vote in the general election. By the way, news break, the Today Show today announced that Times Person of the Year, Donald J. Trump, President-elect. So get that in. But during the general election, the citizens of Florida voted 70% to 30%.
Yep.
So I'd say that was pretty much a landslide vote in a positive vote for medical marijuana use.
Sure.
Now, that doesn't mean that we can immediately just start selling marijuana in pharmacies and doctors can start writing prescriptions.
Right.
What that means is now the state, because we have passed that we will allow it to be done. Now the state has come up with some legislation on how to control the markets. And counties and cities have to do the exact same thing.
Right.
Is this a discussion the city of Ocala is in having now?
Yeah, we had a workshop probably about 2 months ago, and it was actually before the vote, so we didn't have that vote to look on as sort of a placeholder. But we started then, and then actually at yesterday's city council meeting, we talked about, we read 2 ordinances in. One that was a moratorium, and one that was already a zoning, and it had a couple of different areas where we felt it should be zoned. Like you said, it's pretty clear how our residents feel. And actually, I went ahead and I went to Wesley Wilcox's pages, drilled down into the precincts. Out of every precinct in the entire county, only 1 precinct voted no on this measure, and it was a very small margin. And in the city of Ocala, and particularly my district, which is downtown, a little bit east and a little bit south, every precinct voted between 70 and 80% in favor of the thing. So to me, we have a pretty clear thing from our folks of what they'd like. And when it comes to waiting on the state, you know, I know that I understand what the county's doing, but the reality for me is there's not a whole lot the state has to decide that's going to impact what we have to decide as a city. What we're in charge of at this point is going to be, where do we want these dispensaries to go? And all the things the state has to decide, they need to decide what's a debilitating condition. They need to decide who can grow marijuana, who can produce the marijuana. Those aren't our issues. Our issues is, where will the marijuana be sold? So in my mind, I don't think we need to wait on just go ahead and letting businesses know, because this is essentially going to be a business issue, where we believe they should go as far as zoning goes. So I was pushing yesterday to go ahead and let's just get it zoned and get it done with, so that the businesses and the free market can decide the rest of the stuff. The state's going to decide what they need to decide. If we do the moratorium, initially we had looked at a 9-month moratorium, which would put it until September or so. I had asked, and I believe Councilman Hilty had also asked, that we shorten that slightly, maybe to 6 or 7 months, just to let our residents know, who again clearly voted this is something that they want access to, that we're trying to hold ourselves accountable to that. And the state, legislative session gets out, I think May 9th or something like that, first, second week in May. We'll know then if there are any of those things that some people are worried about, which again, I don't think affect what we need to do, but if they're worried about that, it'll be done by early May. We should be able to get our work done by June. So we'll see in 2 weeks on December 20th, the council will have to officially vote on one of those 2 items. So it'll either be, hopefully we zone it, or we do a moratorium.
The county took a 180-day moratorium to see what the legislature's going to do. In my opinion, by taking the moratorium, the county will be reactive, not proactive.
Exactly.
And you're trying to tell, you are a proponent of being proactive, because it's not an issue of where the marijuana is grown, who grows it. No. It's an issue of, is it going to be 1,000 foot from a church? Is it going to be 1,500 feet from a school? Those kind of issues, just as where you can sell alcohol. Yeah,
and those are the issues that I think, as a city and as a county, we have rights from the state. That's our right, is to decide where these things go. That's what, like you said, with any new business, and particularly in alcohol and stuff like that, we decide where something goes, and that's what we need to focus on. I think people saying we're waiting on the state is really just a way to sort of delay some of this from happening. But the reality is, it's coming. I mean, it's been clear.
70% of the public voted it in.
And like I said, when you look at the individual precincts, precinct 1, 2, 3, so as you go out east on Silver Springs, we're talking 80%. We're talking 79%. So in the city of Ocala, there's been a mandate. I was talking to my girlfriend the other day, and I said, a larger percentage of people voted for medical marijuana than voted for most of us to sit at that dais and decide where medical marijuana should go.
That's a very good point.
At that point, you kind of go, okay, let's do the best thing for the city at this point. Let's go ahead and get in front of it. Let's figure out where these things need to go.
Okay, so with that being said, do you think there will be a large influx of people trying to get into the business of medical marijuana dispensaries?
I think there could, and there could be a large influx of people trying to get in, but that's, again, goes back to what the state's deciding. They're the ones who are deciding what businesses can sell the marijuana. And right now, I think there are 5 or 6 businesses that have qualified across the state to grow. Those same 5 or 6 are the businesses that have qualified to sell. And that, again, it's going to end up being a state issue on deciding who. I'm sure if any of the other states are indicative of what will happen here, you'll get a lot of people trying to get into that business. The states made it pretty tough to do. I mean, I think on the growing side of things, they said you had to have 30 years of farming behind you. You had all these check marks. I don't think this will be any different than that original strain of marijuana that we talked about in 2014. So I think you'll get that. And then I think the market's eventually going to decide how many we have in each community. Yeah.
I just feel like people say, well, why here in Marion County? Why here in the city of Ocala? It's going to be a business boom. It's going to happen. Like the city councilman said, it's been voted in. It's going to happen. And why Levy County, why Gilchrist County, why Alachua County why would they get the revenue and Marion County and Ocala not get the revenue?
Yeah, and I mean, I think you've hit it right on the head. I mean, it's going to happen. We need to get in front of it. I mean, that's all it is. And at this point, it not only is there a legislative, we've got legislation that says it's legal. We now have a constitutional amendment that says it's legal. So, I mean, us trying to fight that at this point doesn't seem
I think you make
reasonable.
the best point that I've heard someone make is we don't have just legislation that makes it legal.
Right.
We have a constitutional, voted in by the citizens of Florida amendment. We have an amendment to the Florida Constitution that says medical marijuana is now legal.
Absolutely. And we could argue whether that was the right place for that to go or not, but the reality is it's there. And I rose my hand and said, I swear to uphold the Constitution in the state of Florida. So
we can argue whether the Bass Pro Shop's in the right place or not, but that's where it's at.
Exactly.
And for those of you that know the shot I just took, thank you. You're welcome. So let's speak about some things going on in the area.
Sure.
The city, the garage is finished. I've parked in the garage now. I think I've reached double digits now parking in the garage.
Awesome.
So the garage is a great add because now when I go downtown, I don't even think. I just immediately drive to the garage, park, and walk.
Yep.
Was that the goal to get people like me where I don't even look for a parking spot? I drive to the parking garage, park, and walk downtown.
I think so, and that was sort of brought in right before I came in, and I'll be honest, when I was running the campaign to become a city councilman, I wasn't sure that was a good use of $5.5 million. I'm still wondering what we could use that for, but at the same time, you can't deny that the garage has been successful, and you can't deny that it looks great, and you can't deny that people are parking in it, and that's what it's there for. The other day, I was at the Riley Center. We were doing a show, and I was listening to these 2 ladies, older ladies, talking, and they seemed like they were from outside in the county somewhere, not from the city of Ocala. And they said, "Oh, it's so pretty downtown." And then one said, "Well, I just wish you could park." And then the other one said, "Well, they've got a parking garage." So maybe that's going to start to sort of spread, and more people are going to use it. I know for all the events we've had, Harvest Fest, Light Up Ocala, FAFO, First Friday Art Walk, that thing's pretty full, and so you can't deny that it's being used, and if that's helping bring people here to Ocala, I'm all for it. And
I saw the other day, a new business here in town that I hadn't really seen in wide use before, and it was taking people from an event to and from an event at the Riley Arts Center to the parking garage. And mind you, it's only 5 people, but that's 5 people that are employed.
Right.
They were peddling rickshaws back and forth from the parking garage to the Riley Arts Center and back. That's a business I don't think people thought might happen. Yeah. But if you go to metropolitan cities like Orlando, or if you go to Gator games on a Saturday in Gainesville, or you go to Atlanta, I was in Atlanta this weekend, the bicycle rickshaw business is a affordable way to get around the metropolitan downtown area, and it seems to be that it's come to Ocala now too. So that's there's another benefit the parking garage is giving.
Are you healed up from your trip to Atlanta? You feeling better?
The massacre on Peachtree was it was trying. It was trying.
It was trying on TV, so I can't.
Trying. So, but I was enjoying it with friends of mine because I graduated from school in Atlanta. So after we got off the radio, Buddy Martin and I got off the radio, I went to a pig picking with some friends of mine. So
awesome.
I had a much better time than sitting in the stadium watching the massacre. Let's talk about the hotel.
Yeah.
We've heard the hotel is coming. We've heard the hotel is coming. It's kind of like the American Patriots.
Right.
The British we heard the British are coming, but we don't know.
Right.
And then we heard the parking garage was coming for 50 years.
That's right.
And it finally got here.
Yeah.
Are we 50 years in the making on this hotel, or is there an update you can give us where the hotel is moving along?
I think we're about 2 years in the making of the hotel at this point. And this is something that since I've been on council that I'm learning more and more about. But when you say we're going to put a hotel on this spot on the downtown square, it's not just okay. Hey, can you build that tomorrow, Tom? There's all these steps that have to go through. And when we developed that contract with Downtown Ocala LLC, which Danny Gaikwad's a principal there, when we developed that contract, there were many steps along the way that had to be met. And as of now, Mr. Gaikwad and his group have met every one of those steps. They just passed a financial review that shows, okay, they've got the means and access to the funds to build it. Right now, they're finishing the design of the hotel and what it looks like. I've seen some preliminary renderings. It's going to be a fantastic addition to downtown, and it really fits what we need. By the end of January, they've got to have a major hotel group signed on as, yes, you can.
So they don't have a flagship name yet.
He has pinned it down to one, and he told us recently that he feels, almost very, very, very confident.
You're not going to tell us who it is, though.
I can't. Yeah, no, I'd love to, but I promise people will be happy with it. And I know he went through a few of them trying to find the right one, and that got made tough by the fact of all the mergers and acquisitions happening in the hotel groups right now. I mean, a lot of those are getting.
A lot of them.
And that sort of delayed some of that process because you might be talking to one and they were saying, well, hang on, we might get bought by this other group. Well, you're talking to them too. And then so now that deal gets put on hold. But I think we finally settled on one that fits all the requirements that the city put on it, because we said it had to have so many rooms, had to have so much space for meetings, had to have retail space. And what he's finally settled on and what the renderings show look awesome with retail below and meetings room on the second floor and all kind of stuff. And of course, the other part of that project is there's a second building that's going to be on the east side of that block that has retail below and living space above, apartments or condominiums. So all that's looking good. So at this point, as long as everything in January gets checked through, which it should, because it seems like we're on the right track. I think by May we have our final second financial review. At that point, once we see all the numbers and the designs done, everything looks good. And I think he would break ground in June or July of this year or this coming year. So
there are some people out there that say, why a hotel downtown?
Yeah.
We have plenty of hotel rooms at I-75 and 27, I-75 and 40, I-75 and 200 with the Hilton.
Absolutely.
We have Danny Gaikwad owns a nice hotel, the Holiday Inn Express, right there on Pine.
Yeah.
We have hotels owned by the HDG Corp all over town. Yeah. Why do we need a hotel downtown?
Well, like you said, Danny, the guy who wants to build this one downtown, owns the Holiday Inn Express on Pine. There's a hotel he owns on 75 with the Sky Restaurant on the top of it. And he wants to build this one. HDG, they own a few hotels. They're about to try to start building another one. So obviously, if the hotel owners themselves are the ones wanting to build new ones, there must be some business market need for that. With it being downtown, I think you could argue that there's a stable of folks that will constantly use the hotel. You think about the attorneys and all the people that have to fly in for the courthouse. And then you think of the events that are happening downtown at the Riley and here, and then you think of visitors and stuff like that.
Well, IHMC would use it.
IHMC, yeah.
Silver Springs International Film Festival would most definitely use
Absolutely. So I think it's while maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago it would have been hard for us to imagine that use, I think you can't deny now that there's a use there. And again, when it's the market themselves dictating, yeah, we'd like to build another hotel. We'd like another opportunity to get people's business. I think that's a good thing.
We're speaking with City Councilman Matthew Wardell of the City of Ocala. Councilman Wardell, a couple more things. Is there any plans, now that we've seen 302 Broadway being built, we're seeing more of the apartments taking residents in above some of the storefronts in downtown.
Yeah.
You're seeing more and more residents living in the downtown area. Is there any plans, or can you tell us of any plans, of maybe a grocery store or bodega type place in the downtown area that would help the residents of that area? Because
Sure.
the closest thing right now is Churchill Square, the Publix.
Right, yeah. And I live right here downtown. I have that same issue. I'm kind of right between. I can either go to Churchill Square, which is technically closer, but then I'll argue with my girlfriend because I like to go to the one on 40. So we sort of debate on that. But I know from the city's perspective, we want a grocery store downtown. We think it's really important. The major issue, and of course, as a city, we can't build a grocery store. We need private business to do it. We need the grocery stores themselves to say, hey, we want to put a grocery store in this location. From what I understand in the talks that I was talking to some friends that do some of these kind of things, a lot of the grocery chains, they want to see a certain density of people that live in an area before they'll decide to put a grocery store.
So they don't want to do the Field of Dreams thing. If you build it, they will come.
They
want them to
they
be
won't
there,
do
then
it.
they'll build
Then
it.
they'll build it. Yeah, they're a little tighter with their dreams than we'd like them to be. But I think as you see this residential stuff develop, and you're seeing it, 302 Broadway is a great example. There's the other building on the square that's now being converted to 6 or 8 condos. There are other places in the area that are starting to, more people live there. So I think as those properties develop, I think you'll get the interest from a small chain. I mean, I'd love to see a small Trader Joe's or something like. I don't know if I can say specific brands, but I would love to see
a small like little nice grocery store.
A nice grocery store, and I think it would get used well. And I think the farmers market is a testament that people will come to downtown, and you see a lot of people walking. I live on Southeast Second Street, and a lot of people walk all the way from there down to downtown, which is 8 or 9 blocks, and they use those things. So I could see that happening, and I know we've got some properties in the downtown core that would work for it. You know, you think of the old Lincoln dealership and some other places that would be pretty good locations. So no immediate plans, but hopefully someone's thinking about it.
Speaking of immediate plans, I know that there is a ongoing negotiation with Billy Casper Golf because the 3-year agreement with them is coming to a close.
Sure.
I know the city is looking into options that include Billy Casper.
Absolutely.
But they're looking at all their options.
Yeah.
Is one of the options Rec and Park taking the golf course back over?
I don't think so. You know, I'm not a golfer, so I'm not necessarily always exactly in tune with Ocala Golf Club. I know that Billy Casper's done a good job over the last 3 years, and this going out to bid is something that happens anytime any city comes.
Government,
yeah,
right.
yeah, and it's the right way to do it, because if maybe there's another golf group out there that can come in and they blow us away, you never know. So I think it's just part of the process at this point. But I know we're eventually going to consider all the options. One of those is keeping Billy Casper. The others may be other groups that try. I haven't heard that we're thinking of trying to take it back over within the city. I'll find out and dig in a little bit, but I don't think there's any reason for, if Billy Casper's done a great job, and it seems like from what you tell me, what other people in the city and other people tell me they have, I don't think there's any reason to think that they're not a great contender to receive another contract. But
But you are in the camp of the golf course it's an entity that needs to be there and needs to stay. It doesn't need, because there are some people that have said publicly the city doesn't need to be in the golf business, period, no golf courses.
Sure. I'm in that camp, to be honest with you. I don't think we need to be in the golf course business. However, I think that golf course needs to be there. So if at this point the only option is for us to own it and it to be there, then that's what we need to be doing. Eventually, I would love it if someone like Billy Casper or someone wanted to buy that course and continue to operate, and then it becomes a private enterprise. I think that would be great. But at the same time, it's a valuable asset to our community. I mean, you saw the sculpture they just did out there.
Fantastic.
And that was
sculpture.
paid for not by the city, but by the golfers. And what do they call them? The course rats or golf? What do they call them?
Golf rats. Yeah.
Golf rats. That group.
Right,
that to put that together. So. Obviously, the community loves that course, and it's a great amenity. My interest is just continuing to find ways for it to be financially successful. But the truth is, there's no golf course in this country right now, more than a handful, that are actually making money.
I think there's 7 in the entire golf course, public golf courses that actually make money throughout the United States.
Absolutely. So to try to hold it to some standard that doesn't exist is not right. But to continue to find the best way to operate, I think, is right. And I think that's what we're doing. That's why these things go back out to bid and stuff like that, just to continually make sure we're getting the best deal possible for everybody.
Last question for Councilman Wardell. It's been a year. I think the city council meeting yesterday marked a year for
Yes,
you.
sir. Yeah.
Was it what you thought it would be?
It's been a lot of fun, and in a lot of ways it was what I thought it would be. When I ran on the idea that I wanted to be very involved. I wanted to go meet with the electric guys. I wanted to hang out. I wanted to meet with the fire guys, see what they're doing, and learn and be a part of all that process. I didn't realize how much of that process exists out there, So it's been busier than I thought it would be, but I've enjoyed it. I think for the first 3 or 4 months, I every once in a while I'd see my predecessor, Mr. McLeod, in the audience, and I'd be thinking, man, you want to switch seats because this is a lot busier than this is a lot more. And but after those first few months, I realized this is something I'm passionate about, and once I got my feet on the ground, I'd say I really figured out what I'm passionate about and what I can work on and help with. And I think that's the key to having a great, well-rounded city council. You want 5 people that are different from each other. You want people that are younger, you want people that are older, you want people that come from the west side, people that come from the east side, you want people that grew up here, you want maybe 1 or 2 that didn't grow up here. So you want that conversion of ideas. I think right now we've got a pretty good council that's pretty diverse, I think, and I feel like once I realized that I bring a certain uniqueness to that, I was able to feel pretty good about it. So I love it.
Councilman Wardell, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Tom.
Much success to you, and hopefully you'll come back and see us.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That was Councilman Matthew Wardell of the city of Ocala. I'll leave you with this note. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt went to Congress the day after the bombing of Pearl Harbor and wrote in his short speech and passionate speech, he said it was a day that will live in infamy. Common sense says we should always keep those days close in our memory so that we know how to prepare for them on a daily basis. God bless those who lost their lives on December 7th, 1941, on the attack on Pearl Harbor. For my guest, Matthew Wardell, and for my executive producer, Brian Morgan, I'm Tom Schmitz. This has been Common Sense with Tom Schmitz. Have a good morning.